I think this union budget announced by our finance minister has really given MSME sector a lot. And there are a number of steps that the budget speech mentioned, which would really enhance the growth and development of MSMEs in India. For example, the fact that now the CGTMSE fund trust, the government is now enhancing that to 9,000 crore. This in itself will bring in about 2 lakh crore rupees of credit to the MSME sector without any collateral security. So needless to say that this will really give a lot of support and entrepreneurial support to aspiring entrepreneurs and thousands of MSMEs in India. Second very important thing which the budget takes care of is a new law change. For example, the budget mentions about the change in the section 43B of the income tax, which clearly says that starting 1st of April 24, the expense can be booked only after payment to the micro and small enterprises, which would either be 45 days or 15 days in case of no purchase order, purchase agreement. So therefore, this one small change is going to bring in a whole new culture where now people will have to pay their suppliers in time. So micro and small enterprises are really going to benefit from this. Similarly, many other measures which the government has announced, for example, in terms of skill development centers, in terms of entrepreneurial sector, centers that are taking place. Many state governments now have taken the cue from the union budget and have announced, for example, yesterday Haryana budget itself gives a lot of incentives on exports, to startups, for infrastructure development, for the industrial areas, etc., and many other incentives to the MSME sector. So I believe that yes, this budget has given MSME a new, I would say, a lease of life, at least for those MSMEs which had defaulted in terms of completing their projects and contracts, and their security deposits were forfeited. Now the government has announced that due to COVID, if there was any delay, they'll get their 95% of security deposit back. It is giving a new lease of life to some of those failed projects due to COVID. So I think, yes, the government has allocated good budget to the MSMEs, and there's a lot ahead to look at. Yes, these are two very important issues. These laws are common for every business in India. So therefore, not only micro and small enterprises, they get their payment in time, they are also bound to make payments to their suppliers in time. So it's both ways, and ultimately it would unleash a new work culture. It will bring in a new culture where everyone is paying everyone in time. The only thing to look at here is the government, for example, railways, defense, where this kind of disallowance is not possible. So what if railways or defense, they don't pay the entrepreneurs in time? That, of course, is something to be seen. However, I believe, and it's happening, that Ministry of Finance has given clear instructions to all the public sector undertakings and public sector enterprises that they must pay micro and small enterprises within 45 days. So needless to say that this culture is now coming in, and post-COVID, a lot of old funds have been realized, a lot of payments have been recovered. In any case, there are micro and small enterprises facilitation councils in different states looking at recovery of those payments, the stuck payments, and liability to pay up to 3 times the bank rate of interest for the delayed period. So a number of measures are there in place, and therefore I believe that this cultural change is something to be seen, and it would have a huge impact in coming years. Well, I do believe that there are two things which, three things in fact that we are looking at. One is that Honorable Prime Minister had launched an MSME outreach program where he allocated a large fund which would come as interest subsidy. So to various MSMEs for new loans up to 1 crore. So that budget, was over, and that scheme dropped out in 2020. So we really believe and that government must allocate this kind of a fund, and so that there is interest subvention for new investments and when MSMEs go for banks and other institutions for new loans. Second thing is that a very prominent scheme called credit linked capital subsidy, a 15% subsidy for new technologies, that fund has now exhausted. So we want the government to allocate some funds, because this would help the MSMEs in adopting new technologies, because the costs of some of those technologies are very high. And the third is that there is capital gain tax in India. And however, if you sell a home and buy a home, there is no capital gains tax, there is exemption. So we want the government that entrepreneurs who sell off their properties and invest their small businesses, there should be no capital gain. So capital gain exemption, just like buying new homes, should also be there for investment in the MSMEs. So a lot of entrepreneurs who otherwise cannot often raise loans from the banks, they should get this exemption. So we believe that these three things should further accelerate the growth of MSMEs in India.